want you to have a look at the board. And, from a perspective of the white player, do you think it's a good position to begin the game with? Do you think if you could achieve this position in the opening, you would be happy and satisfied to continue on in the middle game? Well, I would be. Because I mean, look at this position. My bishop is so well placed in it's in a fortress. This and this fortress, and this knight is backing it up, controlling these squares. This knight is actually helping me control the center. I have, three pieces controlling the e5 square. Uh, I think I have a decent control of the central squares. I in fact have a pawn on d4 as well. I have the possibility to castle on the king side. And in fact, I could maybe push my queen to c2 and then really have this battery placed upon the diagonal from c to h5. Uh, you know, I think I have a lot of attacking power on the king side of the board. Surely, I have some weaknesses on the queen side of the board, but I think I could deal with them. But this entire situation is what we want to create in the London system. The London system is often categorized as one of the boring openings because of the similar repetitive moves made in the opening and a lack of high tension game because I don't see really a lot of exchanges happening despite of this pawn from b to c5, and that is why it is a little low on tension, but I think it's a pretty decent opening to play. Here's the thing about London system. Rather than focusing on which move I made first and which move I made second, I I want to have more focus on the core aspects of the system. The core aspects are controlling the center, having a decent defense, and trying to attack on the king side. And that is what, probably the core aspects of any opening would be. And that is why I pretty much, play London system a lot because although it is boring, yes, it is repetitive, but it is solid enough for beginners. And, I could make the move knight to f3 before or after knight to d2, and that is fine for me. The opening does not really we are not really going to talk about which move to make first and which move to make second, but rather how to arrive at this scenario in multiple different dimensions. So let's start learning about one of the most solid openings, the lemon system. So how do we even begin playing the lemon system? So the London system begins with the classical move of d4, and we expect black to reply with d5. Now, if this variation goes on, then you can actually lead on to play the London system, and that is by making the classical move of bishop to f4. At this point, you might go into the Queen's Gambit, Queen's Gambit declined, accepted, slash defense, or maybe even the King's Indian attack or whatnot. But currently, to play the London system, we have to go with bishop to f4. And one of the most solid replies that black comes up with is knight to f6. Now, at this point, I just want to go back and say that this move might also come handy. This is also a classical reply, whereas knight f3 is also a classical reply. But currently, let's lead with knight f3 simply because the move c5 or knight f3 or all such moves, if played correctly or if played more classically, they lead to the same position as we saw in the beginning of the board. That is the pyramid formed by these two pawns on these two squares, this bishop on this square, and maybe the knight on d2, and the opposition has castled, and my bishop is out, my knight is out, and so on. So yeah, this is how you begin with it, and for the classical variation of it, the e pawns move a step forward each. So yeah, we have begun playing the Learning system, but how do we proceed further? So a classical move that comes after e6 is knight to f3. And yeah, so the intentions are really clear, right? We are controlling the center. And black knows our intentions. Black knows that the e5 square is really important. So what does black do? Black brings his bishop here in hoping that he will trade the bishop with him and he'll maybe bring out his queen or just double his pawns or whatever. But the e5 square will be safer for black in this position. What do we do? primary tip here is not to fall for the exchange thing that beginners tend to have. As a beginner, I also tended to have that if I have the option of doing an exchange and if I'm not losing, I'll probably exchange. Why? Because exchanging pieces really clears off my mind. I mean, how good is it for me to, just take on this bishop and then get my bishop taken back? And, the bishops are out of play. The board is a little more clearer. Maybe, maybe I'll give him this check, and once he defends, I'll take the bishop back and stuff like that. The idea is that you don't always have to clear off your pieces. If you are at an advantage, even a positional advantage, hold on to your pieces. Let the game flow. Exchange your pieces at time where they give you some actual advantage rather than just clearing off the board for your own clarity in mind. So at this point, a better move than exchanging for the bishop would be to maybe go back. Why? Because you can clearly see that at some point this castling was happening, right? And this entire London was the London system was to attack on this file or maybe on this square, maybe bring the queen out, having control of the center and everything like that. And moving the bishop back to g3 actually helps in all of that because I'm still controlling this square. This bishop has not really threatened me. I'm still on this diagonal. If bishop actually does try to take me, I'll I'll just double my pawns. That's not too bad. Why? Because I'm having the h5 open, and that's really the bigger advantage for me. Because the moment black decides to castle or do any stuff like that, a clear attack is hanging here. This knight will go out. Maybe this queen will come into this fight, although this knight is here right now, but not considering the intricacies of that. But you can see that a good attack is happening the moment this h5 is open. So black will dare not take my bishop. And that's the main positional advantage. The bishop is hanging there. Yes, both bishops are facing each other, but none of them are ready to take each other. And that's what builds tension into the game. And we always use this tension to our advantage. We use this tension to, bind your opponent into some playing intricacies. Because now, once this thing has happened, he'll maybe bring out his knight, maybe will push this pawn forward and stuff like that. And once this pawn has come here, maybe we could give him a fork or something like that. So this tension is what you need to release at the right moment. And the thing that you need to do right now is bring your bishop back, hold on to that tension, and use it to your own advantage. All right, let's go back a step. Now, this is how you study opening. So, what you essentially do is that you go along a line and you try to figure out, okay, what if the opponent tries to do this? Can I have a positive situation out of that? If the opponent tries to do this, can I have a positive situation out of that? So, we considered a positive situation out of this move, bishop to d6. And the solution was not to take it, but rather to go back. Now, let's consider another possibility. So the other possibility is that, okay, these things are out and opponent decides to play the move c5. Now, this is probably the best response that black could give you against the random system. And in fact, it comes in two variations. We'll see both the variations, but currently, let's say that the opponent does decide to make the move c5. What was our original plan? Try to remember that plan. And the original plan was this pawn here. Yes, this pawn was here, and yet it was not being exchanged with the d pawn. This is the same thing as we learned in the, just 2 minutes back. To not to exchange mindlessly. Of course, you won't exchange here mindlessly because you can see that black is coming with the tempo and with the bishop. That's not fair. That's very bad for us. So rather, we would build our own fortress or our own pyramid. We have opened the file for the queen. We have opened the file for the queen. There is an open diagonal for the bishop. Both are attacking the king. We have, kind of built this pyramid kind of structure. This bishop is going to soon be there. This knight is going to be here. In fact, yeah, this pawn is, in fact, there is no problem in moving the pawn to c3. Earlier, what I was scared about was that, oh, my knight won't be able to come here. But I have a better position. Knight to d2 is actually a good position because it is controlling e4 still. Maybe yes, it is not controlling d5. Knight to d2 is still valid, and that is what we'll play along that. Now, why should black not take on the d pawn? because black always has the option of taking on d4. So let's say that black actually decides to take on this pawn and try to break my pyramid-like structure, but I don't really have a problem with it. In fact, both these moves actually show me a positive advantage on the stockfish. But EXD4 shows a bigger advantage. Why? Because I I still have to stop the attack from the queen side. So if I had taken from the C pawn, then maybe this queen side was open and I might have gotten a check or something like that. But to defend on the queen side, I take with the E pawn so that the C pawn lies there and this diagonal is still built here and things like that. And all the opponent can do is maybe bring out his knight or something like that. But now I have a better central control. There is no one to challenge me here. Surely, yes, this square is out of my bounds because two of them are here, but they are not really doing anything. So yeah, this move c3 is actually really good. But we also have another variation of it. And that other variation is when this pawn has not been put. That is, this diagonal, this pawn that is being protected by the bishop, what if it was not protected by it? So, yeah, let's try that part. Let's say that this pawn did not come up. And at this moment itself, black decided to push c5. Now, this is also the best move for black in this scenario. So c5 is actually a really good reply to the London system. But here's the thing. In this situation, our best move is to maybe take on c5. Uh, yeah, so that is what you do instead of bringing knight to c3. Why? Because simply, even if black decides to make this move e6, we could always defend it. No matter what he's trying to do, we could always defend it. And yeah, all we are making sure is that this queen doesn't come on the left side of the board. If we can make that sure, then everything is well and settled. So yeah, that were our two replies to C5. Firstly, when the pawn was not open, and secondly, when the pawn was open of the file. If the pawn was not open, then simply take the pawn. That's a free pawn. If the pawn was open, then defend it. I mean, sorry, push to C3. Defend this entire diagonal build this entire diagonal and continue with your game because black won't dare take your pawn. So yes. Oh, and also this entire scenario that we were talking about that okay, he might try to come up with this pawn or something like that. There is in fact a much better solution to it as well. Just take the knight. Taking the knight might also help you because then the rook will have to go and then the support for this pawn will be the queen and stuff like that. The I'm not really trying to tell you the exact moves to make in such situations, but rather the ideas along which you could think. So yeah, this was one of the ideas that okay, if you have to take the pawn, then what happens? If the opponent decides to make the move e6, then you have a lot of moves to make. You could also maybe open up your own bishop because to give a long distance or something like that. But yeah, B4 is also not bad. It might be a little losing from the engine side, but you still hold on to a pawn, and that is, I think, more important at the beginner stage. So let's consider the other scenario right now. The scenario is not when the bishop was pushed back or something like that. The scenario is talking about some entirely different threat. Although I can assure you that this bishop being here would not have really created a problem in the threat that we are going to talk about. So the threat is this. I anticipate the queen to come on to b6 and then try to target on my b2 pawn. And if that scenario is really to occur, all I want you to get ensured is that this file, this diagonal, has the bishop on it. If that is true, then all is fine. So yeah, continuing on those thoughts, the best move for white will be to make the move bishop b2. Why? Because now even if the queen comes here, I can actually play knight to c3. And knight to c3 is not a bad move because sure the queen can take on b2, but queen taking on b2 will be disastrous for black. Not exactly disastrous, but at least bad for black. Well, if you don't believe me, take it yourself. Let's say queen took on b2. You know what really is the best move for white? Knight to d5. And now you can immediately see why knight to b5 is a good option. Can you see this fork and this blocking of the queen? And now ideally the queen can go nowhere. The queen can't come to this square, can't take this, can't take this, can't take this, can't really come on these squares. This is also bad. This is this is the only possible fine move for queen, but even that will be, pushed off by my pawn to c3, and then the queen will be in real trouble. So yeah, these moves were bad, and the only possibility of preventing a fork right now is playing the move knight to a6. Knight to a6 is in fact the best move for black. The least harming move for black because every other move is actually bad for it. So in fact, try to go down this line. Let me try to go down the line of queen to b4, trying to check me, and then if I like this is what my initial thought might be. Okay, I'll give him I'll push the queen back, and then the queen will go here, and then this fork will be prevented. So let's see if that is possible. I do this. I do this. You know what's the best move for black? For white. It's still knight to c7 because this bishop is actually hanging here. And that is why this entire trying to make your queen go away is not a good idea. Rather, what you could do is play knight to a6. And why knight to a6 is good is because it is protecting the c7 square, and I can't really take on it. Like I cannot, it will be a fair exchange maybe. And the best way to deal with this entire thing is making rook to b1. Why? Because threatening the queen with rook to b1 will force the queen to take on a2. I go on a2, and no matter what the queen does now, I can take on this knight. By taking on this knight, okay, fair, he has my rook, but then I can have, this fork and take away the rook, and that will be essentially an advantage of the knight in exchange of one pawn for me, which I am completely fine with. In fact, I'm also doubling the pawns of the opponent on the a5. Doubling on the a5 is even worse. So yeah, I'll have a good time doing this. So he goes back there. I take on the knight. Of course, the opponent will take on my rook. I'll give him a fork. No matter what he does, I'll have the rook. So that was one entire line about, when the queen tries to threaten on my d2 pawn, all I have to do is develop my knight. If he does not take on my d2 pawn, even then it is fine. I have developed my knight. And this is why these moves are really good because they are good irrespective of what the opponent does. If the opponent tries to take on my pawn, sure, I'll defend it by playing knight to b5. If the opponent does not, even then I have developed a knight, which is something that I would have otherwise done as well. So let's go back to our final possibility of making one move. And if I don't really anticipate the queen coming on here, I mean the entire idea was to keep this file open, right? So yeah, moving bishop to e2 is a fine move, but not moving bishop to e2 is also fine. And that is why I would like you to emphasize on moving c3. Why c3 is important is because in the entire initial picture that we imagined in the beginning of the video, this pyramid-like structure was one of our core ideas to place our bishop on d3 and then have the game go into the middle game. And that is why making the move c3 is something I personally like. Um, and from here, the opponent can make a lot of moves. From here, the opponent has the option of playing knight to c6, bishop to d6. Bishop to d6, we have already dealt with. Remember, bishop to d6, push your pawn back, have this h file open, really target on the king side of the board. So bishop to d6 is something we know how to deal with. But now let's come to knight to c6. Okay, one more thing. If the queen had to come to b6 now you don't really have the option of playing the knight to c3, right? So now you don't have that spicy game left, but queen to c2 is fine. Queen to c2 will help you defend on this pawn and then help you attack on this side. So yeah, queen to c2 is fine. Queen to b3, in fact, is also fine. And queen to c1 is also a good move to make. So yeah, queen moves are good in this particular scenario. But we are not considering queen to b6 right now. We are considering knight to c6. And why is knight to c6 probably the best move for black? Because of this square. All I, in the entire London system, I desperately want control of the e5 square. I currently do have the control of that because I have three pieces targeting on the e5 square, while the opponent has only one piece targeting on the e5 square. So, not really concerned about it right now. So let me keep on developing. Knight to d2 is a fine move. I agree to you. And then the opponent might make the move bishop to d6, again targeting the e5 square. But now you can see that you still have an advantage over the e5 square because you have three pawns, and you have got the control of these two square as well as you have the knight here. So yeah, you are just keep on developing. The situation is still fine right now. And finally, you can make the move. Maybe you wanted to make the move bishop to d3, but currently this threat is here. So yeah, just go back. If the opponent castles, maybe come to bishop to d3. So this entire scenario is very similar to what we saw in the beginning. And this is a good position to start the middle game from. This attack is always something that we have imagined to do, and you can probably, if this knight is not here, then you can, go on with the attack and try to control. If these two pieces are not really there, then the putting the knight on the c5 square is actually a good idea. But currently these pieces are here, so some sort of an exchange might always help. And yeah, and you always have the option of breaking the tension by taking on the c5 square. If the opponent does try to maybe come on c4, then put your bishop behind, or uh, you can do something with it. So yeah, let's in fact try. If the opponent does make the move c4, then yeah, your best option will be bishop to c2, and then the opponent will try to push b5, and you can really break the tension by making the move e4 and trying to have this exchange, and really opening up your bishop and placing it on b4. So yeah, these ideas go beyond from the opening side of what I could tell you in the video, but you can definitely play more and more games in the London system and realize which sort of opening style works best for you. Yeah, so we were on this portion of the board, and we have, pretty much seen some London system ideas like how to tackle when the opponent threatens on trading on my bishop. The idea when opponent threatens on, taking on my b2 pawn with his queen and storming in with his queen. Yeah, let's just revise that when the bishop comes, we'll push the bishop back and have it trade with the h pawn so that our file is open. If this queen tries to come in, we'll just push our knight on the d file and trap the queen somehow. And in fact, even if the queen is not trapped, we'll have the bishop or the knight. We'll have the rook or the knight for free. So those are the ideas that we were working upon. But yeah, there is one more control idea. Yes, surely London system helps us attack on the king side of the field, but London system also helps us control the e5 square. And controlling the e5 square is of very prime importance. And that is why this move, knight to e5, is really good in this particular position. Why? Because now we have paused this pawn push. Although the pawn push in this particular move was not really beneficial for black, in fact, it was beneficial for white because you were getting it as a free pawn, I guess. But putting your knight there really helps you control the entire center. You have control on the. I mean, look at how powerful the knight is at e5. It is controlling all these squares, and nobody can even take it. For example, let's say this knight tries to take it. Okay, awesome. As white, I'll just be so happy because I have this fourth angle. So yeah, this knight can't take it, this bishop can't take it, because if bishop takes, then I can take on the bishop, and this particular knight can't go anywhere because this queen is taking control of this diagonal. So yeah, nobody can really push my knight away. In fact, even if this pawn is trying to take, I'll happily destroy my pyramid and you know continue on this diagonal to support this knight. There are no issues to me. So this knight is particularly stable here, and that is why it will be like a thorn in black's eyes he will want to push this knight away, and that is a very good positional advantage or positional victory for you because he'll make efforts, and you will always have an upper hand in this particular position. So yeah, that was mostly about London system. You should maybe practice it more. Practicing it gives you a really good hand at playing the London system and playing against the London system. About playing against it, we'll definitely make a video on how to handle an opponent playing London system as the black, because I think there are better openings than London system for white to play, and that is why black can really take advantage of an opponent trying to play this opening. So yeah, we'll definitely make a video on it. And if you want any video in particular, do drop us a comment and we'll make a video on it. Also, if you like the video, please drop a like and subscribe to Chess Raja. And that is how you know the London system begins. And we'll see more on what move to make next.